But you know what? Great people usually have greater needs. Over the last few weeks, I have been asked multiple times by multiple people, hey, what's this deal about greater that you've been studying? Like every post you have, something about being greater. What's your deal? Aren't you great enough? I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And they're like, Becky, you have it all. You have it all. I'm like, I do? They're like, yeah. She said, Becky, I don't know what you're doing trying to get greater. You're great enough. When is enough going to be enough for you? And I said, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think I'm doing? And she says, you have a husband who loves you. That's true, I hope. Yes, I do. She says, you have a great job. That's what day it is? But yes, no. I have a great job. She says, you have these 2 beautiful kids. Yes, I do. She said, why do you want any more? And I said, no. I don't want any more kids, and I don't want any more husbands. I'm not trying to get greater like that. I'm trying to get greater in the life that God has called me to be. I'm trying to be greater in ministry. I'm trying to be greater in love. I'm trying to be greater in grace. I'm trying to be greater in health. I'm trying to be greater in the things I think about, the things that come out of my mouth. That's what I'm going to become greater in. Because a lot of times we look at Laban and we think, because here's this book, it's telling us how to get greater and how, but let me make sure you understand something. God's greater way, it says one thing we need to realize about God's greater way is it's possible to have all the external signs of greatness and yet internally yearn for more. You ever look at that? You ever like I remember sometimes when I have a friend and I go, God, sometimes I really battle, and I battle with depression. I battle hard with depression. And when people don't believe that, they're like, what do you got depressed about? Well, I don't know. Nothing. But everything. Right? I just battle. It's not like, oh, today I'm going to be depressed. I'm going to be depressed today. Yes, I am. No. And on the external, it looks different. But God said, but let me tell you something. It is impossible to have everything like Naaman and really yearn for something more. So here's the deal with Naaman. Naaman had 2 problems, and I want you to remember this. Here's this great man, but he had leprosy. Now, do y'all know what leprosy is? It's a skin-eating flesh disease. It was the worst thing somebody important in the society could have. Because nobody would be around that. Gross. Nasty. Stuff that flesh. Gross. So you are put out. So here's this big man, very important person. It would not be good for me at my school to have leprosy. Okay? It would not. I'm around too many people. I'm too in the public eye. It would not be good. And that was Naaman. That's not a good thing for him to have. And the second thing is he was prideful. So I just love this story. Man, it hit me stick in the eyes. Right in the eyes. So here it says, so at the end of verse 1, it says he was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. Now, bands from Aram had gone out and taken captive a young girl from Israel, and she served Naaman's wife, and she said to her mistress, if only my master would see the prophet, she's talking about Elijah, who's in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. So Naaman went to the master and told him what the girl had said, by all means go. The king of Aram said, man, get out of here. I'll send a letter to the king of Israel. So Naaman left, taking with him, look what he took, 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, 10 sets of clothing. I mean, he's going to hook this guy up, right? And so the letter he took to the king of Israel read, with this letter I'm serving my servant Naaman to you, that you can cure his leprosy. Well, the king read the letter and he started tearing his robes. He says, am I God? Can I kill and bring back to life? What does this fellow send me someone to cure for leprosy? He's trying to pick a quarrel with me. And so Elijah, the man of God, heard about his king of Israel and torn his robes, and he sent a message. Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he'll know that there's a prophet in Israel. So Naaman went with his horses. Now listen, here's Naaman. He's got leprosy. He shows up with his horses and his chariots, and he stops at the door of Elijah's house. And Elijah sent a message. So Elijah doesn't even go outside. Here's Elijah living his little private life, whatever, little humble life. And here comes chariots and kings and whatever, and they're outside, and they're like, and so Elijah's like, I'm not going out of my house. So he sends a servant out to him. I think that's hilarious. I don't know why, I just think it is. I told you the Bible's so funny to me. And so he goes outside, and he sends a message. He goes, go Okay. Really, I think we need to do this. Okay, but anyway, but here's what we do. We say, God, I want to be greater. I want to do more. I want whatever you want. I'll do anything. I'll extend your love to anybody, but not that person. God, I'll forgive anything except that offense. God, I'm going to go anywhere except that place. Go to the next one. Because the key to walking in freedom is often connected to obedience in the areas of our lives where we've locked into patterns of resistance. He said, wash and be clean. I mean, and look what he does. Naaman flies away angry. He said, I thought that surely he would come out here and stand and call on the name of the Lord, wave his hand, and cure me with leprosy. He says, but can I go wash in some clean waters? And he turns off and leaves in rage. God says, hey, Becky, are you filling your name? I want you to become greater. And I say, let's do it, God. And he says, burn the plow. Burn the plow, God, check. He says, start digging ditches, Lord. He says, take inventory. I'm taking inventory. He says, look at things from a different view. Got it, Lord. And now he says, go do this. And I say, you got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding. But let me tell you something. If you want to become greater, God is going to call you to do something to humble you. You know why? Because if you're going to become greater, it's not about you. Right now, God is calling me to go to someone who's been so ugly to me and tell her I forgive her. That's ridiculous. First of all, I didn't start it. Secondly, I haven't said anything bad about her. I haven't engaged in this at all. I haven't. And thirdly, I don't want to. Okay? Because that's going to be humiliating. Because I'm going to have to hear her say, see, I told you, like, oh, blah, blah. I think my plan is better. Stay away from her. This is not that difficult, Lord. I don't need to see her. She doesn't need to see me. I can stay out of her social circle. I don't need to be around her, and they're fine. I didn't start it, Lord. He says, I don't care. I want you to write her a letter, call her, tell her that you're sorry and you want to mend fences. I don't want to. That'd be lying. And you told me not to lie. So, I'm not there yet. I don't want to text. I'm telling you, it ain't happening this week. It ain't happening. I'm busy with Mr. Cyclops. So I'm just telling you right now, none of this is intended to embarrass us or to shame us. It is rather to make us deeply and desperately dependent upon God as our one and only source. That's why. God is going to call you to do something ugly. Stand in front of somebody. I don't know what he's going to call you to do, but what is your Jordan? Because one thing God is going to say, he's going to say, what we do is we say, God, I'll do anything as long as it's not that. Is there one person that you're not going to forgive? Is your Jordan that human achievement that maybe you need to defer so that you can pursue God's plans for your life? Or that potentially embarrassing conversation that you need to have with someone? Or that secret sin that you need to confess? One greater than Elijah wants to have a word with you, and his name is the Holy Spirit. And he can show you exactly where you need to do this. Exactly where your Jordan needs to be. You know, think about Jesus. It was never, even Jesus was never about Jesus when he was here. Jesus was about the Father. In Philippians 2:6 it says, and 7, it says, being in the very nature of God, he didn't consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing. Taking the very nature of a servant, he made himself human likeness. In Matthew 20, the Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve. It wasn't about Jesus when Jesus was here. It was about his Father. It was about serving. The reason that Naaman, a good, honest man, almost missed his miracle because he thought it was about him. See, dipping in the Jordan wasn't about him. It was about his obedience and his humility. It wasn't about him. Yes, Elisha could have walked out, waved his hand all up funky and done all that stuff. And you know what? He would have been saved. I mean, he would have been healed. But God didn't want it to happen like that because he wanted Elijah to have to do something. When I finally write the letter or call that woman, when I finally do that, it will not be in any part about Becky Denton. It will be such a God thing. And it will be complete humility on my part when I finally get there. Maybe next Reduce's series. We may have Reduce's lesson. Here's how we stay small. Here's how we become humble. Immediate obedience. When God tells us to do something, do it. Do it. You know, God gave Noah specific instructions, and he did it. Filthy ark. God gave Moses specific instructions. He gave Abraham specific instructions. He gave Esther specific instructions. We got to consider Moses and Joshua and Jericho and Gideon's instructions and on and on and on and on. I have found that the simplest commands and acts of obedience usually have the deepest and long-lasting results. Usually those simple acts of obedience are a launch pad for me about what's to happen. And the second thing is to keep yourself small with the people you interact with daily. Because, you know, we're all jockeying for positions. In our spouses, getting our wants versus their wants. In our jobs, we're always jockeying. Even in the pickup line, in the moms are, oh, really want to be in the front, that elementary, what's that called? Carpool line, sorry. We don't have that, we have buses. And kids that drive. Anyway, everybody's jockeying. You know, I see you on the road. Today I was driving, these cars just going so slow. I was only 100 yards from where I'm going to turn in, but I was tired. Just went around it. We're just jockeying for position. We're always trying. So here's how to stay humble. Number one, be obedient all the time. Every time you hear it, just be obedient. Say yes. Start saying yes to God. When you have that feeling, that urge, that Holy Spirit prompting you, do it. And do it right then. You know, the dip was required. The dip was required for Naaman to fulfill his destiny. And it's required for you too. It's not optional. It's not optional. The dip was not required. The dip was required for him. It was required for us too. I don't know what your Jordan River looks like. For me, I know exactly what her name is. Ugh. She's dirty. You know? She is. She's dirty. But I can do more. When I do this, she's going to flip this. And God says, I really didn't ask you for your commentary. I'm just telling you to do it. You want to be healed? You want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? Burn the plow. Set it on fire. Dig your ditch. Take inventory. Look at it from a different way, from God's point of view. And then, take a dip, man. Get in the water. Whatever God's calling you to do. Let's look at this last one we'll look at today. I have to read you the story. Go to the next one. Esty? Thank you. I want to read you a story. In 1984, Frank Culpepper was diagnosed with terminal cancer. The beloved pioneer pastor and denominational executive would live only 30 more days. So within hours of getting his diagnosis, he begged his son to take him back to the church where he had been saved, and he preached his first sermon. It was in North Carolina. Well, at that point, his son, Raymond, he was a preacher in a prominent church. He was busy. He didn't really have time to take his dad. Plus, his dad was really, really sick. And every so often, like every 2 hours, his abdominal cavity would fill up with fluid. So this wasn't smart to take this man, to another state away because they were in Alabama. So it wasn't really smart to take this guy away, to take him away. And every day the father would say, Brandon, you got to take me. I'm not going to die until I go to my home church. I'm not going to die. Yes. So 2 weeks later, Frank, the dad, announced to his son, tomorrow we go to North Carolina. Now, I don't know how far Alabama is from North Carolina. I'm not good geographically, but you got to get on the plane. And it's a ways, right? Don't you have to get on the plane? Okay, well, we're going to do it on the plane. So the next day, they leave. And the journey was a nightmare of medical complications. Every 2.5 hours, his stomach would fill up with fluid. And they had to stop. He would get ill. The church, they finally got there to a church he'd been in 34 years later. So when they get to the building, Frank, the dad, fills up with tears and he starts talking to his son. And he shows the son the little Sunday school class where we were saved. He tells him about how God saved him. He recounts his testimony. This is the place. He said, this is the place where your daddy got saved. This is the place where I preached my first sermon, and tears are just coming down. And he's thanking, he's dropped to his knees. He's thanking God for his church. He's thanking God for his salvation. He's thanking God for his wife and his children and his 34 years of divine faithfulness. He's thanking God for God's call on his life. And Raymond says he's never seen his father worship in this way, ever. And Raymond